The desert sun was a heavy, white weight in the sky. It baked the black asphalt of the highway and made the air over the road shimmer like a wavy mirror. The only sound for miles was the low hum of an old, dark blue sedan rolling to a stop beside a rusty gas pump. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. Her name was Ilara. She moved with a tired kind of stiffness, the kind you get from driving for 8 hours straight. But even tired, she stood straight. Her eyes, a cool gray like the stone in a riverbed, scanned the place without seeming to move. She saw the dusty convenience store, the flickering open sign, the single old truck parked on the other side. It was the last stop for gas before a whole lot of empty desert. She started pumping the gas, the rhythmic click-click of the handle the only sound. The heat was a physical thing, pressing down. She tucked a strand of hair that had escaped her ponytail behind her ear. Her hands were lean, with a few small scars across the knuckles, pale against her tan. She was thinking of nothing much, just the next few 100 miles, the cheap motel she'd find, the silence of being alone on the road. The bell on the store door jangled sharply, breaking the quiet. A young woman stumbled out. She looked maybe 20, her face pale under the harsh sun. She was clutching a small backpack to her chest like a shield, and on her lip was a bright, fresh smear of red. Right behind her, the door swung open again, and the noise spilled out loud laughter, the heavy clomp of boots. 5 men walked out, swaggering in a way that said they owned the space around them. They wore leather vests covered in patches, showing a skull with snake-like wings. The Desert Reapers. The oldest one, the leader, was a big man. Not just tall, but wide, with a thick beard and eyes that were small and mean. His name was Coyle. "Come on now, don't be like that," Coyle said, his voice a rough growl that carried across the lot. He reached out and grabbed the young woman's arm. Her name was Maya. She flinched, trying to pull back. "You owe my friend an apology for bumping into him, and for spilling his drink." "I didn't. It was an accident," Maya said, her voice trembling. "Please, I just want to go." "You'll go when we say you can go." One of the other men laughed, a skinny guy with a shaved head. He moved to block her path to a beat-up little car at the edge of the lot. Ilara watched all of this. The pump handle clicked off in her hand. She slowly placed it back on the pump. The old, familiar feeling started in her stomach, a cold, heavy coil settling into place. It wasn't fear. It was focus. The world seemed to get quieter, the edges sharper. She saw everything. The way Coyle's fingers dug into Maya's arm, the positions of the other 4 men, the loose gravel near her feet, the metal air hose on the pump next to hers. She had wanted no trouble. Just gas, a bottle of water, and miles of quiet road. But this was trouble. It was walking right toward the bikes, dragging a scared kid with it. Ilara closed her car's gas cap. She turned. Her movements were calm, unhurried. She didn't walk toward the fight. She walked toward her car door, putting herself directly in the path between the bikers and their motorcycles. Coyle saw her. He smirked. "Problem, lady?" He called out, not even stopping. "Let her go," Ilara said. Her voice was flat. It didn't rise in question or shake in anger. It was just a statement. Everything stopped for a second. The skinny guy laughed. "You hear that, Coyle?" Her Highness gave an order. Coyle finally stopped, turning to really look at Ilara. He saw a woman alone, in simple jeans and a t-shirt, no makeup, no jewelry. He saw someone who didn't belong in his world. "Why don't you mind your own business?" he said, his tone low and dangerous. "Get in your car and drive away. This don't concern you." "You're making it my business," Ilara replied. She didn't move from her spot. The girl leaves, now. Maya's eyes were wide, flicking between Ilara and Coyle. a tiny spark of hope fighting the terror in her face. Coil's smirk vanished. He shoved Maya toward the skinny guy, who caught her roughly. "Hold her." Then he took 2 big steps toward Alara, his boots crunching on the gravel. He loomed over her, smelling of sweat and old beer. "Last chance. Get lost." Alara didn't look up at his face. She looked at his center, at his balance. She saw his weight shift to his back foot, just a little. He was going to shove her. When his big hands came up to push her aside, Alara moved. It wasn't a dramatic leap. It was a small, precise step to the side, letting his own momentum carry him forward. At the same time, her left hand shot out, not to hit him, but to grab his wrist as it passed. She pulled, guiding his force, while her right foot hooked behind his ankle dot. It was so fast, so simple. Coil stumbled, caught off balance, and crashed into the side of the gas pump with a heavy grunt. It wasn't a knockout. It was a message. It was a shock. A deep silence fell over the gas station. The other bikers stared, their laughter dead. Their leader was picking himself up, his face turning a dark, furious red. The skinny guy holding Maya loosened his grip, stunned. Alara stood still, her hands relaxed at her sides. She had given them a clear, simple choice: walk away. But as she watched Coil's eyes fill with pure, violent rage, she knew they wouldn't take it. The cold coil in her stomach tightened. The peaceful drive was over. The gas station was no longer a pit stop. It had just become a battlefield. Asterisk. The silence after Coil hit the pump was heavy and hot. It only lasted a second, but in that second, everything changed. Coil pushed himself up, his hands scraping on the rough concrete. The look on his face wasn't just anger. It was the fury of someone who had been shown up and in front of his men. His small eyes fixed on Alara, and there was no mistaking his intention now. This wasn't about the girl anymore. This was personal. "Get her," he snarled, the words thick and ugly. The man closest to Alara, a big guy with a red beard, was the first to move. He didn't think. He just lunged, his arms wide, trying to grab her in a bear hug. He was strong, used to winning fights by using his weight. Alara didn't try to match his strength. As he came in, she stepped forward to meet him, not away. It confused him for a split second. Instead of his arms wrapping around her, her hands came up inside his reach. She grabbed the front of his leather vest, one fist on either side. Using his own forward momentum, she pulled hard and dropped her weight. Throwing her hip into his stomach dot, it was like a door swinging open. Red beard went flying over her hip. He didn't just fall. He was thrown, crashing into the skinny guy who was still holding Maya. Both of them went down in a tangle of limbs and curses. Maya scrambled away, her backpack forgotten, and pressed herself against the side of Alara's car, her hands over her mouth. Alara was already turning. Her mind was quiet, clear. She wasn't thinking in words like fight or win. She was seeing solutions to problems. The second biker, a man with a long, greasy ponytail, was smarter. He had pulled out a small knife, the blade catching the sun. He swiped at her, a wild sideways cut aimed at her face. Alara leaned back, letting the blade hiss through the air an inch from her chin. As his arm extended past her, she moved. Her left hand clamped down on his wrist, a grip like iron. At the same time, her right hand shot up, the heel of her palm driving straight up under his nose. There was a sickening, wet crunch. Ponytail screamed, a high, choked sound, dropping the knife. He staggered back, clutching his face, blood immediately pouring between his fingers. Alara didn't watch him fall. She was already looking for the next one. Coil was back on his feet, roaring. He charged, not like the others, but with a purpose. He was bigger than her, stronger. He knew it. He wanted to crush her. Alara knew she couldn't let him get his hands on her. She feinted to the left, then dropped low as he swung a massive fist. The air whistled where her head had been. From her crouch, she drove a fist straight into the side of his knee. It was like hitting a tree trunk, but she hit the right spot. Coyle bellowed in pain, his leg buckling. He didn't go down, but he stumbled, grabbing onto the hood of a nearby car to stay up. The fight wasn't in one place anymore. It was flowing across the gas station lot. Alara kept moving, never staying still. She was a gray shadow in the bright sun, always a step ahead. The fourth man, younger and scared now, picked up a metal tire iron that was leaning against the station wall. He swung it like a baseball bat. Alara ducked, and the iron clanged against the gas pump with a ringing sound that echoed. Before he could pull it back, she stepped in close. Too close for the long weapon. She drove 2 sharp punches into his ribs, short and powerful. The air left his lungs with a whoosh. He dropped the tire iron, gasping, and fell to his knees. But Coyle was recovering. And the first man, Red Beard, was back up, his face a mask of rage. The skinny guy was also rising, pulling a chain from his belt. Alara was in the middle of the lot now. She took a fast breath. They were spreading out, trying to surround her. She couldn't let that happen. Her eyes darted, looking for an advantage, for anything. She saw it. The air hose for the tires, coiled on a metal post near the service bay. She backed toward it, drawing them in. Red Beard came at her first. She sidestepped his charge, and in one smooth motion, yanked the heavy metal air hose from its holder. It wasn't a weapon, but it could be dot as the skinny guy came in, swinging his chain. Alara whipped the end of the hose. It wasn't a killing blow. It was a distraction. The heavy nozzle cracked against his shin. He yelped, hopping on one foot, his swing going wild, but Coyle was there. He had caught his breath, his knee clearly hurting, but not stopping him. He had learned. He didn't lunge. He came in carefully, his hands up, ready to grab. Behind him, Red Beard was circling. For the first time, Alara was cornered, her back to the brick wall of the station. Maya, watching from the car, let out a small, terrified whimper. Coyle saw it too. A nasty smile split his bearded face. "Done running, lady?" He growled. Alara didn't answer. She just watched him, her chest rising and falling steadily. She still held the air hose. The other 2 men moved to block any escape to the sides. The sun beat down. The fight had only lasted a minute, but the world had narrowed to this hot, dusty corner of concrete. Coyle took the final step, his shadow falling over her. He reached out, his big fingers curling, ready to finally get a hold of her and end this. Alara's gaze moved past him for a fraction of a second, to the main door of the convenience store. An old man, the clerk, was peering out, a phone pressed to his ear. Help was coming, but it was far away. It wouldn't get here in time. She was on her own. She had dropped 3 of them, but the biggest 2 were still standing, and they had her trapped. The cold focus inside her didn't waver. It sharpened. The first part was over. Now came the hard part. Coyle's shadow was a cage. Alara could smell the stale beer and sweat on him. His big hand, calloused and scarred, reached for her throat. The man with the red beard was right behind him, waiting for his moment. Time seemed to slow, but Alara's thoughts did not speed up. They became simpler. She saw the problem. 2 men, a wall behind her, a hose in her hand that was now useless at this close range. She didn't try to use the hose. Instead, she let it drop from her fingers. It hit the concrete with a dull thud. The sound, the sudden empty hands, made Coyle pause for just a heartbeat. It was the opening she needed. She didn't go back. She went forward, Ducking under his grabbing arm, she drove her shoulder into his chest. It wasn't to knock him over. It was to create space. As he grunted and was pushed back a step, she turned her attention to Redbeard. He was surprised by her sudden move toward him. He swung a clumsy fist. Alara caught his arm, twisted it, and used his own force to spin him. She sent him stumbling, not toward her, but straight into Coil, who was trying to grab her again. The two big men collided with a heavy oof. It gave Alara 2 seconds. That was all. She didn't run toward the open lot. They would catch her. She ran along the wall, toward the front of the convenience store. There was a metal rack there, filled with bags of charcoal for sale. The skinny guy, limping from where the hose had hit his shin, saw her and moved to cut her off, a mean smile on his face. Alara didn't slow down. Just before she reached him, she grabbed the edge of the charcoal rack and pulled it down. It wasn't a gentle pull. She put her whole weight into it. The metal frame screeched and toppled over, sending bags of charcoal spilling across the concrete walkway right in front of the skinny guy. He tried to jump back, but his bad leg gave way. He fell, cursing, into the messy pile of black dust and plastic dot she was past him now. She was at the front of the store. The old clerk inside stared at her, wide-eyed, through the glass. Alara's eyes swept the area. She saw the ice cooler humming against the wall, its door held open by a latch. She saw the payphone booth, its glass long gone. She saw the shiny, oily puddle near the diesel pump dot. She heard the heavy footsteps behind her. Coil and Redbeard were untangled and coming, their boots crunching on the spilled charcoal. They were done playing. Their faces were set in lines of pure rage. Alara moved toward the diesel pump area. The puddle was there, rainbow-colored on the black asphalt. She stopped right at its edge and turned to face them. Coil saw her stop. He thought she was trapped again, with the diesel pump behind her. He and Redbeard spread out, coming at her from 2 sides. Nowhere left to run. Coil spat, breathing hard. Alara said nothing. She waited. Redbeard came in first, eager to redeem himself. He charged, aiming to tackle her around the waist. At the very last second, Alara sidestepped. Not a big jump, just a neat, clean step to the side. Redbeard's boots hit the oily puddle. His feet shot out from under him as if he'd stepped on ice. He landed flat on his back with a sound that knocked the wind out of him, skidding slightly in the slick grease. Coil was smarter. He saw the puddle and stopped at its edge. He smiled, a mean, tight smile. He had her. She was on the other side of the oil, but he could go around. He started to circle, but Alara didn't wait for him to set the pace. She acted. She reached down, not to the ground, but to the metal latch on the side of the diesel pump. It was a long, sturdy handle. She yanked it hard. It didn't break, but the sharp, loud clang of metal on metal made Coil flinch, his eyes darting to the noise for just an instant. In that instant, Alara moved. She didn't go around the puddle. She went through the air. With 2 quick steps, she jumped, her foot landing on the chest of the still-stunned Redbeard for just a moment, using him as a stepping stone to clear the oily patch. She landed solidly right in front of Coil. He was shocked. He hadn't expected her to come to him. He swung a wild, desperate punch. Alara blocked it, the impact vibrating up her forearm. It hurt, a deep bone ache. She ignored it. She moved inside his reach, where his big arms were clumsy. Her fists were like pistons short, fast strikes to his stomach, his ribs. They weren't knockout blows. They were meant to hurt, to steal his breath, to make him crawl forward. He did, groaning. As his head came down, she brought her knee up. It connected with a solid thud. Coil staggered back, his hands going to his face. Blood streamed from his nose, dripping onto his beard. He wasn't finished. He was tough, fueled by a lifetime of bullying and hate. He wiped his face, smearing the blood, and let out a roar. He charged again, a wounded bull. Ilara was ready. She didn't meet the charge. She redirected it. As he came in, she grabbed his leather vest again, pivoted on her feet, and threw her weight. Using his own massive momentum, she sent him crashing, headfirst, into the metal frame of the empty payphone booth. The clang echoed across the gas station. It was a sickening sound of metal buckling and bone meeting steel. Coyle slumped to the ground. He moaned, trying to push himself up, but his arms were wobbly. He fell back, blinking slowly, dazed. The gas station was quiet again, but it was a different quiet. It was the quiet after a storm. The skinny guy was still in the charcoal, coughing. Redbeard was sitting up in the oil slick, looking confused and holding his ribs. The man with the ponytail was nowhere to be seen, likely gone around the back. The young one with the tire iron was still on his knees, gasping. Ilara stood in the middle of it all, breathing deeply. Her hands were throbbing. Her knuckles were split and bleeding. A bruise was already forming on her forearm where she'd blocked the punch. She looked over at her car. The young woman, Maya, was still there, pressed against the blue metal, her face pale. She was staring at Ilara, not with fear anymore, but with something like awe and horror and confusion all mixed together. Ilara gave her a single slow nod. It was over. She started to walk toward the girl, to make sure she was okay, to tell her to get in her car and leave. That's when she heard the distinct, terrifying sound. The double click-clack of a shotgun being pumped out from around the corner of the station. The man with the ponytail reappeared. His face was a mess of blood, his nose clearly broken. And in his hands was an old, sawed-off shotgun. He pointed it straight at Ilara, his eyes burning with tears of pain and pure, venomous hate. "You're dead," he whispered, the words carrying in the sudden, terrible silence. "You're dead right now." The world shrank to the dark, round holes at the end of the shotgun barrel. They looked big enough to swallow everything. The man holding it, his face a mask of blood and fury, stood about 20 feet away. His hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. The weapon wobbled slightly, but it was pointed right at Ilara's chest. Not everything else faded. The groan of the man in the oil slick, the whimper from the young woman by the car, the buzz of the broken sign, it all became a distant hum. The only real sound was the rasping breath of the man with the gun. Ilara didn't move. She didn't put her hands up. She just stood very, very still. Her mind, which had been a river of clear, tactical thoughts, became a silent, frozen lake. She knew one wrong twitch, one sudden move, and he would pull the trigger. At this range, the spray from the sawed-off would be wide. It wouldn't just hit her. It could hit the girl behind her, or the old car, or the gas pumps. "Drop it, Vince." The man on the ground, Coyle, slurred from where he lay by the payphone. His voice was thick, dazed. "Not here. Not with the pumps." The man with the gun, Vince, didn't even look at his leader. His wet, hate-filled eyes were locked on Ilara. "She broke my face," he hissed, blood spraying with the words. "She's gonna pay for it right now." Ilara knew talking was useless. Pleading was worse. He was past reason. He was a finger's twitch away from killing her. She had to change the geometry of the situation. She had to get that barrel pointing somewhere else. Very slowly, so slowly it was almost imperceptible, she began to shift her weight onto the balls of her feet. She didn't look at the gun. She looked at his eyes. She saw the wild pain in them, the unthinking need to hurt her back. "You think you're tough?" Vince spat, taking a shaky step forward. The gun wavered. Let's see how tough you are with a hole in your gut. This was it. He was closing the distance, making sure he wouldn't miss. Elara had a split second to decide. Running sideways was suicide. Running backward was worse, so she didn't run away. She pointed. With a sudden, sharp intake of breath, her eyes went wide with a fear she didn't feel. She pointed a finger past Vince, toward the corner of the station he'd just come from. "Behind you!" She shouted, her voice sharp and full of alarm. It was an old trick. A child's trick. But in his enraged, pain-filled state, it worked for a half-second. His brain, wired for threat, couldn't help it. His eyes flickered to the side. The shotgun barrel drifted. Just an inch. It was enough. Elara didn't go forward toward the gun. She dropped. Not a crouch, but a full, flat drop to the gritty asphalt, as if the ground had been yanked out from under her. At the same moment, her legs scissored out, kicking hard at Vince's ankles. He was already off balance from turning his head. The kick didn't need to be strong. It was a tripwire. Vince cried out, stumbling forward. The shotgun roared. The sound was enormous, a deafening thunderclap that slammed against the brick walls of the station. The blast went high and wide, shattering the remaining glass in the payphone frame above Coyle's head in a sparkling rain of shards. Pellets rattled against the metal roof of the service bay like furious hail. Before the echo died, Elara was moving. She was up from the ground in a fluid motion as Vince tried to right himself. She didn't go for the gun first. She went for the man. She drove her shoulder into his side, knocking the last of the wind from him. Her hands clamped over his on the shotgun's warm barrel. She forced it upward, pointing it at the empty sky. They struggled, a silent, desperate dance. He was stronger, fueled by a crazy energy. But she had leverage and a cold, precise will. She twisted the gun, not trying to pull it from him, but turning it like a steering wheel, torquing his wrists. He grunted in pain, his broken nose making his breath sound like wet snorts. With a final, sharp wrench, she forced one of his fingers out of the trigger guard. The shotgun was now between them, pointing uselessly at the air. She shifted her grip, let go with one hand, and drove her elbow straight back into the center of his ruined face. He screamed, a raw, animal sound of agony. His grip on the gun loosened. Elara tore it from his hands. In one continuous motion, she swung the stock of the shotgun in a short, hard arc. It connected with the side of his head, not to kill, but to end. He folded silently to the ground and did not move. Elara stood, the shotgun now heavy in her hands. She broke it open with a practiced snap. 2 spent, smoking shells ejected, clinking on the ground. It was empty. She threw the weapon aside. It skidded under a parked truck. The silence that followed was different. It was ringing, hollowed out by the gunshot. The air smelled of burnt powder and hot dust. She turned. Redbeard was staring, frozen, still sitting in the oil. The skinny guy had finally crawled out of the charcoal, his face and clothes black with dust, watching with terrified eyes. Coyle was pushing himself up on one elbow, watching her with a look that was no longer just anger. It was something closer to understanding and fear. Elara's chest rose and fell. Her hands were scraped and bloody. Her clothes were stained with grease and dust. She looked at each of the remaining men, her gray eyes giving no quarter. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The message was clear. Stay down. She finally walked toward her car. Toward the young woman, Maya, who was now crying silently, tears cutting clean lines through the dust on her cheeks. "Are you hurt?" Elara asked, her voice rough but calm. It was the first time she had spoken directly to the girl since it all began. Maya shook her head quickly. Unable to form words. "Get in your car," Elara said. nodding toward the beat-up sedan at the edge of the lot. "Lock the doors. Don't come out until the police are here." The girl just stared, paralyzed. "Now," Ilara said, not unkindly, but with a firmness that brooked no argument. It broke the spell. Maya stumbled to her feet, fumbled with her car door, and scrambled inside. The thunk of the locks echoed in the quiet. Ilara let out a long, slow breath. The immediate fight was over. But it wasn't finished. The police were coming. The old clerk had called. She couldn't be here when they arrived. Questions, reports, her name in a system. It was a path that led back to a life she had left behind. A life full of questions she would not answer. She looked at her own dark blue sedan. The gas was paid for. The keys were in her pocket. The open desert highway was just a right turn away. But she couldn't just leave the girl. Not with these men still conscious, still breathing hatred into the dust. She had to make sure it was truly over. She had to secure the scene. For the girl's sake, she had to see this through to the last quiet moment. The ringing in Ilara's ears was starting to fade, replaced by the sound of her own heartbeat and the rough saw of her breathing. The silence felt fragile, like a thin sheet of ice over deep water. One wrong move could break it. She looked at the men scattered around the gas station lot. The leader, Coyle, was sitting up now, leaning against the busted payphone, holding his head. His eyes followed her every move, but the fight was gone from them, replaced by a dull, painful weariness. The one called Vince was out cold near the diesel pump. The others were wounded, humbled, and most importantly, they were scared. But scared men could still be dangerous. The police were coming, but they weren't here yet. Ilara knew she couldn't just get in her car and drive. The young woman in the beat-up sedan was still here, locked inside but not safe, not until authority arrived. She walked over to where the skinny man sat, still covered in charcoal dust. He flinched as she approached. "You," she said, her voice low and even. "The keys to your bikes." "All of them." He blinked, confused for a second, then scrambled to pull a keychain from his pocket. He tossed it to the ground near her feet. She didn't pick it up. She looked at Red Beard, still in the oil slick. "Yours too." He muttered something, but did the same. She moved to Coyle. He glared up at her, but said nothing. She saw the bulge of keys in his vest pocket. She didn't reach for them. She just waited, her gaze steady. With a slow, pained movement, he pulled them out and dropped them in the dirt. Ilara walked a wide circle, collecting the keychains. She didn't hurry. Her movements were tired, but deliberate. She carried them over to the row of big chromed motorcycles. One by one, she opened each bike's gas cap and dropped the entire set of keys inside. She clicked the caps shut. It wouldn't hold them forever, but it would slow them down for a good, long while. Next, she went to Vince, the one with the shotgun. She knelt beside him, not to check on him, but to search him quickly. She found a folding knife in his pocket and a set of keys. She tossed the knife onto the station's roof, where it clattered and slid out of sight. The keys joined the others in a gas tank. She was doing what she was trained to do: secure the area, neutralize the threats, ensure no more surprises. Finally, she walked to the center of the lot, in view of everyone. She looked at Coyle. "The police are coming. You will wait for them. You will tell them you started a fight and lost. You will not mention her." She nodded toward the girl's car. "You will not describe me. If you do," she paused, letting the silence stretch, "I will know. And I will find you. And we will have a quieter conversation somewhere else." She wasn't bluffing. The words were plain, simple facts. Coyle held her gaze for a moment, then looked away, nodding once. He believed her. Sirens were a faint whine in the distance now, growing closer. The dust on the highway shimmered. Time was up. Alara went to her own car. She opened the trunk. Inside was a single, worn duffel bag and a small first aid kit. She opened the kit, took out a roll of gauze, and quickly wrapped her bleeding knuckles. The motions were automatic. She splashed some water from a bottle over her face, washing away the grit and sweat. She looked at her reflection in the car window. She looked tired. Older than she was. She closed the trunk and walked to the beat-up sedan. She tapped lightly on the window. Inside, the young woman jumped, then, with a trembling hand, lowered the glass an inch. "Look at me," Alara said softly. The girl's tear-streaked face turned to her. "You are safe now. The police are 2 minutes away. Tell them the truth. Tell them these men attacked you. Tell them a stranger helped you and then left. Do not describe me. Do not guess where I was going. Just say I was a traveler. Do you understand?" The girl nodded, her lips pressed together to stop them from quivering. "Good." Alara reached into her back pocket and pulled out her wallet. She took out all the cash inside, a few $100 bills, and pushed it through the window opening. For the trouble. For the gas. For whatever comes next. The girl stared at the money, then back at Alara's face, as if trying to memorize it. "Who are you?" she whispered. Alara almost smiled. It was a sad, thin thing that didn't reach her eyes. "Nobody," she said. "Just someone who was passing through." The sirens were loud now, just around the bend. Alara gave the girl one last, firm look. Then she turned and got into her own car. The engine turned over with a quiet rumble. She put it in drive. She didn't speed away. She pulled out onto the highway slowly, like any other driver leaving a gas station. In her rearview mirror, she saw the first police car, lights flashing blue and red, turn into the lot. It sped past her going the other way, not giving her a second glance. She drove. The desert opened up before her, a vast expanse of scrub and heat haze and empty road. The tension began to leak from her shoulders. Her hands ached on the steering wheel. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired and alone and terribly far from anywhere. The fight replayed in her mind not as a victory, but as a checklist. Step 1. Assess. Step 2. Engage. Step 3. Neutralize. Step 4. Disengage. It was a script she had followed before, in other deserts, under other names. This time, there was no debrief. No team to nod at her. Just the long, straight road and the hum of the tires. She wondered about the girl. She hoped she would be okay. She hoped she would use the money to get far away from this town, from men like Coyle. She hoped the girl's story would be just another weird tale from the lonely highway dot. As for Alara, she was already fading from it. The gas station, the fight, the men, they were becoming a memory, a story that belonged to someone else. She had done what needed doing. That was all. The sun was beginning to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the asphalt. She adjusted her grip on the wheel, wincing at the sting in her knuckles. Up ahead, the road disappeared into a shimmering mirage. She drove toward it, a single quiet figure in a vast and empty land, leaving nothing behind but dust and the fading echo of a story no one would ever fully believe.